the NFL season kicks off, fans everywhere are gearing up for the excitement on the field.
Everybody! It's game day!
The thrill of the game, the roar of the crowd, and the promise of a fresh start for every single team. But there's also a darker side to the beginning of this beloved sport that's been growing every year. A side that can have devastating consequences for millions of people. With the surge in sports betting ads right now, it's easier than ever to get caught up in the hype of gambling. And when you see celebrities like Rob Gronkowski, Kevin Hart, and even now LeBron James pushing sportsbook apps with sign-up offers that seem, well, too good to be true, it's hard not to get swept up in the excitement. But what is it that those commercials are failing to mention? The reality. That reality is something that I understand all too well. Gambling is addictive, and it's an addiction that's ruining lives. And it's also going to cost the leagues like the NFL big time. How, you might ask? Let's get into it. Let's start with some hard facts here. The NFL season is no longer just about the love of football. It's also about big money. Big money that's being wagered by millions of fans and huge advertising dollars being spent by the groups fielding those bets. This year alone, it's expected that over $35 billion will be wagered during the regular NFL season. That's a staggering amount, but it's only part of the story. Statistics show a significant rise in gambling addiction, particularly around the NFL season. According to recent studies, the number of people seeking help for gambling addiction spikes during this time of the year. And over the last few years, the number of callers to the national helpline, 1-800-GAMBLER, have spiked massively as well, as they are up around 200% since legalized sports betting came to be in 2018. These aren't just numbers. They represent real people, real families, and real lives being turned upside down by this industry. And I'm one of them. I'm Rob, and I'm in recovery from a gambling addiction. I made my last bet November the 12th of 2022, and since then I've made it my personal mission to help you avoid making the same mistakes with your life that I made with mine. So smash that subscribe button if you want to do so, and let me tell you about how I got started with my gambling. I love watching the Eagles with my friends, with my family, and it's always been a part of my life. Ever since I can remember, all of my family events would center around watching an Eagles game, Sixers game, or Phillies game. But the reality is that where I'm from, sports were a major part of my identity. And so when I was 18 years old and I found out about fantasy sports, which somehow still aren't classed as gambling, they're classed as gaming in a game of skill, but whatever. When I found out about that, it was a no-brainer that I was going to start gambling on the games because I was already watching them, and this gave me a chance to boost the excitement, increase my stake in the game. And in my thoughts back then, it made me feel like I could be more involved and know more about the games I was watching. This started out as me watching games with friends. We would have loved to watch the Eagles game and enjoy it and be together, and we would have our fantasy lineups on the game, and then they'd be done, and I'd feel angry, regardless of if I won or lost, which led me to wanting to gamble again on the next set of games. This very quickly became regular sports betting, and this was right around the time that legal sports betting was just coming to New Jersey, so I was doing a lot of my sports betting on cryptocurrency websites and with a bookie. But at this time, I was just pouring all of my time and all of my money into gambling. And for the very first time, just about a year after I started gambling on fantasy sports, I found myself in life-changing debt as a result of my sports betting. I would eventually realize that I was getting addicted to gambling. And what was happening was that I was continuously craving the next bet and craving this thrill of getting a big win, I told myself. But in reality, I just wanted to keep going. Wins meant I could keep gambling. That would spin itself out for the next 6 years, and in total, I'd find myself in debt 6 different times to the point where I had to work a second job to pay it off. These jobs ranged from everything from the beginning, working as a delivery driver at a Chinese food place, to the end, working as a financial analyst at a hospital. Ironic, right? But how did this happen? And how did we get here? One word: advertising. Gambling companies are spending billions to lure in new bettors, and they're doing it by making gambling look fun, easy, and even glamorous. They use big celebrity names to endorse their products, promising free bets, bonuses, and rewards that seem too good to be true. Because again, they are. They've really paid off for casinos. In 2021, online gambling advertising spend in the United States stood at $1 billion US. In 2022 to 1.8 billion, and further grow in 2023 when it was expected to amount to 1.9 billion US dollars. In that same time, revenue was 52.99 billion, 60.42 billion, and 66.65 billion US dollars. A pretty solid return on their advertising spend. The ads are designed to be irresistible, using psychological tricks to get you hooked. The constant exposure to these ads, especially during NFL games, creates a powerful temptation to bet, even for those who wouldn't normally consider it. It does this through the illusory effect. This is when repeated exposure to information makes you think that it's true, even if it isn't. And at the end of the day, if you get hooked to gambling, it is not fully to blame on the casinos. A lot of it comes down to us continuously doing something when we already know that there's a problem and not being willing to seek help. But at the same time, they are throwing fuel on the fire with these constant advertisements. And you're not 100% to blame for the problem. But right now, you need to be 100% responsible for the solution. When you see the message every single day that you're going to win big gambling, you'll start to believe it, even though in the end, the only winner is the house. What's really at stake here isn't just money, it's people's lives. Gambling addiction can have devastating consequences, not just for the person betting, but for their families and loved ones as well. It's estimated that up to 7 people are impacted directly as a result of a problem gambler's addiction. And the long-term effects of gambling addiction can lead to financial ruin, broken relationships, and other serious mental health issues. For many people, what starts out as a harmless bet on a Sunday afternoon quickly spirals into something much more dangerous. People have lost their life savings, their homes, and even their families, all in the pursuit of a dopamine high disguised as wanting a big win. The thing that is often overlooked is that there's an actual dollar value that can be assigned to the social costs of a gambling addiction. The National Council on Problem Gambling estimates that the annual national social cost of problem gambling is $14 billion. These costs include gambling-related criminal justice and healthcare spending, as well as job loss, bankruptcy, and other consequences. As these costs continue to increase alongside the number of people struggling with a gambling addiction, it's going to become a massive PR nightmare for leagues like the NFL to stay involved with the active promotion of gambling. Over the next few years, I anticipate we'll see a massive spike in gambling advertising and the involvement of the leagues in promoting it, until we eventually hit a climax, which will then be followed by leagues desperately trying to get away from the messaging. Because when people realize how many lives are being ruined, that's when the changes are going to start to happen. There's an estimated 10 million Americans struggling with a gambling problem of some nature. What will our nation look like if that number were to double? Because that is the direction we're going. If you're someone who's struggling with gambling, this season can be a big trigger for you. I get that. There's 4 things that I did personally to stop gambling and keep myself away from it since November the 12th of 2022. I shared exactly what I did to quit in this video. Give it a watch and be safe this season. We just need to stay aware of our relationship to gambling, and we need to take things one day at a time.